expressions, dividing and multiplying them, works the same way as rational numbers. So when we multiply fractions, how do we do that? This first question, how would we multiply that fraction again? Times the tops, times the bottoms. Multiplication of fractions, super easy. Tops multiply the tops, bottoms multiply the bottoms. So this is just 12 times 5, which is 60, divided by 10 times 4, which is 40. That's the same thing as 3 over 2. Really easy. Multiplying fractions, easiest thing you can do when it comes to fractions. Dividing fractions, a lot harder. So this is what I do. I change everything to multiplication because it makes my life easier. And I've never forgot the worst lesson I ever learned in math. I had a teacher, didn't like each other, and she taught me something that I made fun of her for because it was the stupidest saying ever. But it's stuck in my brain till now, and I still use it. If you're doing division of fractions like this, you kiss it and you flip it.
What?
Yeah, sounds weird, right? It's called kiss and flip. You change the division sign to a multiplication sign. That's the kiss part, because when you do X's nose, that's a kiss. So you change it to an X, you kiss it, and then you flip the fraction to be 20 divided by 3. Genius. Kiss and flip.
So you just do the first one?
Just change the second one, yeah.
It wouldn't matter.
It would matter.
Interpret
Only flip this one. If you flip the first one, yeah, that would. Kiss and flip. Switch to a multiplication, flip that fraction. That's all you got to do, and now it's a simple question. Multiplication is easy. I like to make questions easy, because then I can do them. So I've learned a lot of tricks, and this is one of them. Multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms. That's going to be equal to negative 60 divided by 15. Negative 4. Kiss and flip. It works. We're going to use it repeatedly in this unit. Next one. It's another division question. Fraction divided by a fraction. I don't like fractions divided by fractions. They're hard. So what should I do? Kiss and flip it. Change that division to a multiplication and flip it. So now it's 24 over negative 8. The first one, it stays the same. Multiplication is easy. Multiply the tops together. Multiply the bottoms together. The negatives will cancel out. Put that in your calculator, math bracket. What do you get? Yeah, because that's not 56. That's 48. Hi. No. Cross multiply and divide is something you do when you have an equal sign.
What's the thing where you multiply there?
That's cross multiply and divide. So, if you're doing this, yeah, you could like that and multiply and multiply. Yeah, that would work. I thought you were talking cross multiply and divide, you get the variable by itself. Yeah, you could cross multiply that and it would also work. I like kiss and flip because one, it's going to help us in our next, what we're headed towards. And two, it's kind of visually, it's a stupid little rhyme that works. If you always remember it.
Did you ever say sorry to this teacher?
Nope, she's a student teacher. Never seen her again. She wrote me a really nice note at the end of the year. Literally. It said, like, I really enjoyed having you in class. Like, good luck, which is definitely not true. She's in college.
She's like, see you later, loser.
11. Grade 10.
No.
Miss, grade 11, grade 10.
I mean, deep down it was probably like, I was really glad that you passed this class, because now I won't have to deal with you.
No, she was gone, right? She left before the end of the year. She was a student teacher. Hey. Now we have rational expressions, but they're still the same. It's still a fraction divided by a fraction. So you still do the same thing. Kiss and flip it. So now it's going to be x cubed divided by x minus 8 times x plus 3 divided by x minus 4. What I don't want you to do is don't expand that. And what I mean is when we multiply these things together, don't distribute in and don't actually multiply. This is factored form. If you remember from yesterday, we always want factored form. So leave things in factored form.
We're discussing for non-permissible values. I know, like, you take them from the original, but
That's-
then you add the ones that you want you simplify.
That's what we're going to talk about. Yeah, because that's the question, is the non-permissible values. Okay, put these together so that it's x cubed times x plus 3 divided by x minus 8 times x minus 4. Yeah, so instead of actually mashing them together and creating like a crazy quadratic, we leave it in factored form. And the reason why is because the question always will need you to state the non-permissible values. You're always going to do that. And remember, the non-permissible values are numbers that you don't want to divide by 0. So if we looked at this question right now, an obvious one is 8. X can't be 8, because if you had 8, it would be 0 times 0, 0. Anything divided by 0 isn't possible. Maya brings up a good point. I told you yesterday, always get your non-permissible values from the beginning of the question. You're still going to do that. So you go back to the first time that you have factored form. This is the first time you have factored form. That's when you work with it, before you've manipulated anything. So, what values can't you have in this question? X can't equal 8, because if x equaled 8, this fraction wouldn't be possible. Now look at the next fraction. Negative 3 is another one. X also can't equal negative 3 because then that fraction wouldn't work. There's a third fraction here. So every time you look at a question for non-permissible values, you need to figure out how many times you do division. If we look at this question, I do division once here. I do division once here. But I do a second set of division, or a third set of division there. Which means this entire thing can't equal 0 either. So you have to check the top. What would make the top equal to 0? 4. So x also can't equal 4.
And is it just a fluke that the second question is that, will that always happen, or just this one?
It's not a fluke. It'll happen a lot. Because it just so happens when we kiss and flip, it goes upside down, right? So that will happen a lot. But the key is to not get caught up in finding your non-permissibles here. Find them here.
So why did we,
Just wait. People have their hands up. Maya.
does that mean that how many divisions you have in a question, that's how many things you can
That's how many areas you have to check. You could have way more or way less than that. Right? Look at this question. No non-permissible values, right? But there's 3 divisions. You could also have way more. Because I could add another times x plus 1, times another x plus 2, and then you keep getting. The number of division tells you the number of areas to check. So, I have 1 division here. I need to check that area there. What makes that 0? I have a division here. I have to check up here to see if what creates that to be 0. And then I have another division here, so I have to check the bottom area there. 3 divisions, 3 areas to check. London.
So, those values for x, that is not going to touch the line.
Right, so if you were to graph this,
Like, would it touch in different spots?
yeah, it would. These are areas where the graph, remember we graphed it yesterday,
Yeah.
and there was those wonky lines? That's where these won't touch. Yeah, so that'll be 3 spots the graph will never touch. Gainer.
Then why do you have to simplify it? You're just supposed to look at it.
if you're just looking for the original one. Usually just because now you can calculate numbers of x really easily because it's nice and simple. Just give me a second on this. Hello? Hi. He is. So the question was like, why bother doing all this simplification of things if you're still going to work with that? It's a pretty good question. So if you started taking these equations like that, it's kind of a really messy equation. And you're going to see in about 4 slides, it's a super messy equation. So it's hard to calculate if I told you x is 1. And you had to find out what the value is when x is 1.
Okay.
In the really complicated one, can't do it. In these ones, it's really quick.
Okay, but if it's just asking for the permissible values, you don't have to do that, right?
Correct. Yes, yes. That's fine. Yeah. Fine.
But if you have 3 divisions and say that x times 4 on the top of your division is x squared, what's that third area to check?
You would still check the area, but there might not be enough permissible value there. Yeah, that's a good point. These are just, if there's 3 divisions, it means there's 3 spots to look. Doesn't mean you'll find anything there. It's just 3 spots to look. We'll do another question. So, right here. What are my non-permissible values going to be? Right off the hop. Okay. Is this, yep. Right. Is there any other non-permissible values? It's multiplication. So D can be 0. So that's good, because that's a trick. So, if you look at this, there's 1 division here. So you need to check this area. There's no variables there, so there's going to be no non-permissible values there. You have a 2nd division here. So you need to check down here. That's where Ty got C can't be 0. There's no other divisions in this question. So there's no other spots to look. Ty's dead on. Okay. Now let's try to simplify it. Multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms. The top's is going to be 5c squared d. The bottom is going to be 20c. Coefficients simplify with coefficients. Numbers go with numbers. Letters go with letters. So 5 divided by 20 simplifies to be 1 divided by 4. You have 2 c's on the top, 1 on the bottom. That simplifies to be 1 c on the top. You have 1 d on the top, no d's on the bottom. The 1 d on the top stays. That's your answer. You don't have to write the 1. You just go CD divided by 4, where C can't equal 0. That would be your answer. If you have a question, throw a hand up and I'll answer it. Maddie.
How did he get 0 for that?
So he looked back here, and he looked at his 2 divisions. There's 1 division here, and 1 division here. And you can't divide by 0. So he looked at this one, and he knew, I can't divide by 0. So 2 times c can't equal 0. If c is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, can't divide by 0. So c is not allowed to be 0. Okay, so no question? Okay.
Why can it be shown as CD over 4 instead of 1 CD over 4?
Because 1 times c is just c.
But does it come off for 4?
It's all part of 1 fraction. So it's still like this. You don't have to separate the 1 over 4 out. This is still part of that first fraction.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's exactly it. So I divided that 5 by 5 and that 20 by 5.
So use the system.
Exactly. Math.
When it says simplify each expression, does it want restriction too?
Yeah.
Just that's
So, that's a good question, and there's no way he was alone on that, because the last class had the same question. When you get asked to simplify something, and for the rest of this unit, state your restrictions. Just always do it. Because this isn't true alone. This is not equal to this unless you put that restriction in there. Because if you were given just that, do you need any restrictions? No. So right next to it, I would go C cannot equal 0, and that's my answer. No, that's if you ask for domain. If they're asking for the domain of C, then you would do the C is an element of the reals, C cannot equal 0. That's what we did yesterday. Okay.
D has no restriction, so we don't state it.
Exactly.
So
We always assume if there's no restriction that it don't say. It doesn't need to be set. Right? It's like if your parents don't tell you what time you have to be home, you can just stay home forever. Oh, wait a minute, that's not how it works. This question. So, that's a good question. You could multiply that 4x in, but it won't help you. Because, oh, that's a good question. Okay, we're going to multiply our fractions together. And I said multiply tops with tops, bottoms with bottoms. When you do that, if you have coefficients like this, it's the same like dividing coefficients. Numbers can't go with numbers if they're out front. So that 4 can multiply by that 5. So it becomes 20x up top. Then it's times x plus 3. Then it's times x minus 1. On the bottom, same thing. Coefficients still go with coefficients, so it becomes 6x times x minus 1. At this stage, we start canceling things. X minus 1's cancel out. X's cancel out. This 20 and the 6 are both divisible by 2. So that'll become 10 over 3. And on the top, you still have an x plus 3. That is close to your final answer. You have to state your restrictions. Go back to your original question. What can't x be? It can't be 1. If x was 1, this would be 0, and then you're dividing by 0.
So there's still 2 divisions, right?
There's 2 division signs, so now you gotta check the other side. What can't x be on that side?
0.
0. So, x can't equal 1 or 0.
Oh, I'm getting.
That's your answer. Or Rich.
So when you were, the correct factor, is it because the equals 0 that you don't have to put your brackets?
Right. Because they cancel each other out. Yeah. Alright. We're going to fast forward. If you want to do those two for practice, they're yours to do for practice. Star means multiplication. They have done a bunch of different signs for multiplication. There's the X, there's the star, there's the dot. It's just the way math. I don't know why they did that.
No, but in this book, like, I don't know.
My guess, because I didn't create the original set of notes, I just worked with them, is that people use Microsoft Word. And the X's look like X's on Microsoft Word. But the stars made it clear that it was a multiplication sign. Also for programming. So way back when people program computer things, you can just put a star in, and that'll work as multiplication in a lot of programming worlds. Same with if you do the little hat in a computer, that means to the power of. Everything is based off of a standard keyboard nowadays, and that's why multiplication in programming world is a star. So if you ever become a programmer, you'll figure that out. If you ever want to put something in Google, and you want to be like, what's 10 times 33? And you know it's 330, but that's okay. Because you're going to check on Google, and you're going to put a little star in. 10 star 33.
That'd be excellent.
This stuff? Probably.
Like, you just put this in and then super.
Am I? Never tried?
Right.
Somebody created an app
Yeah.
for university students that you can take a picture of your question and it tells you the answer.
Oh, I've used that.
And there's something called, if you ever get out of university or get out of high school, go to university, and you take a calculus course, Google wolfgramintegrator.com, and it'll do your entire first year calculus for you. It's pretty cool.
But what
Yeah,
do you do
tell that
when
to
you
Jack
go to
if you can
test?
calculus. Yeah, you fail your test pretty hard. It doesn't help you on a test, but it sure helps you on homework. Wolfgram Integrator, if you can
But then you
calculus.
fail your test and you fail the course. So really, it's not going to
Well, like if you know the,
Hurts you long range.
or you could be like, you know the stuff, but you're really lazy.
Yeah, like if you just want to check your answer, that's what the smart kids used to call it. The dumb kids used to cheat. Oh, for sure. Everyone used it. Everyone in the whole class knew about it, and everybody did it.
And is it like,
I was the dumb kid first year, for
is it
sure.
like it's like all of your
It straight up does, it shows you step by step how to do it. Like you put in any question you want into this program. It's a calculus question, so it's useless to you. But you put in your question into this website, and it'll show you step by step what to do and your answer. So on your homework, you could show your work and have your answer. It was kind of brutal. Okay, so yeah, someone was really smart who created that. And if you want to do it at higher levels, you have to pay for it. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty crazy. So we have a fraction divided by a fraction. That's hard. Liam's got it. Kiss and flip it. Change it to a multiplication. Flip it. Before you go ahead and start solving this, let's do a flashback to Math 10C, where we learned exponent laws. The exponent law tells us this. If you have things multiplied together to the power of something, that 2 goes to both things. So it becomes x cubed to the power of 2 times y squared. Right? So
Excellent questions.
I'm showing... Stop talking. I'm showing you an exponent law. You have something to the power of something. So that 2 applies to both things. Since there was nothing on top of the y, it's now y squared. But the x cubed became x cubed to the power of 2. If you have a power to the power, you multiply them. So it's equal to x6, y squared. That's what it would be. So 3 times 2 is 6. That's the power of a power law. You guys are thinking about x3 times x2, which is very different. That's when you add your powers. You guys are thinking of multiplication law. And I get that you guys know this stuff, but some people don't remember it, and that's why I'm doing it. That's why it gets frustrating when we just start all blurting out answers, because some people are confused, and they actually need the help. Josh, yes. So, if we look back at this question, that squared goes to both things. So it's going to be 25n squared. So this is 5n to the power of 4 times 6. And on the bottom you have negative 2, and you have times 5 squared, which is 25, and n squared. Hi. We're going to get to that in a second. That's equal to 5 times 6 is 30, n to the power of 4, still there. Divide by. Negative 2 times 25 is negative 50. n squared, still there. We're going to simplify these things. 30 and 50 are both divisible by 10. Yeah. I thought you said they were both divisible by 3. No. So that's going to become, right here. Yeah, I run out of room and then it's confusing. It's going to be 3 over negative 5. The n's, they're going to battle. You have n squared left on the top. Highest question is, why are you allowed negatives on the bottom now? Because we've always told you not to do that. Because that's not how you properly write math. That's not going against a rule. You are allowed to have negatives on the bottom. That's not an actual math rule. It's just a poor math thing. So somebody said it should be negative 3 over 5. Negatives can move up and down just fine, and it's still the same thing. So negative 3 over 5 is the same as 3 over negative 5. Negatives can move, they're fine, they're free to go up and down like that. Yeah, it'll always be on the top, or it'll be out front. Also allowed. Okay, this next one, a little bit harder. Oh, before we do that, that's not our final answer. You need your non-permissible values. So, come back over here. Your first division is there, so you check, nothing. Second division is here, which means the top up here can't be 0. What would make that up there 0? So n can't equal 0. The third division is here. You look below. There's no variables, so you're fine. So, yeah, it's possible. There would be nothing. You just write nothing. You should be good. No, just don't write. Don't write. Physically, do not write anything. Yeah, don't write nothing. That'd be pretty funny. Right? Yeah. Who's up first? Nobody gets that. Yeah, I'll see you. Ellen. Who's up first is like a classic skit where there's a baseball team and the guy comes to talk to the manager of the baseball team.
Oh, I've totally seen that.
And he asked the guy, he said, like, okay, like, tell me about your baseball team. Well, who plays where? And he said, well, I got who's on first. And he's like, who's on first? Yeah, who? He's like, what? And he's like, no, who's on first? His name's actually who. And he's like, and I got what's on second? And he's like, what? What's on first? No, who's on first? What's on second? And he does like this big full confusion. It's pretty funny. It's like, it's from like the 30s.
It's like black and white.
Yeah, it's old school. And then every, like, people make fun of it all the time. Like the Simpsons have made fun of it. Like, regular cartoons always just throw it in different ways. The same way we just did. Write nothing. Don't write something. Write nothing. Okay, anyway. Emily, don't write nothing. So if it was to ask you, like if there was a range or not, so if this was like a z equals, because you needed to be like that first, yeah, you would say n is known materials, but n can't equal 0. If he was asking what are the possible values of n.
No, like if there wasn't.
And if there wasn't n and it was an x. So the thing, yeah, and that's okay, because it's really confusing, because in math we change the variables all the time on you guys. And that makes it really hard. So if you're trying to do something in math with variables and it's asking for a range, it means there has to be 2 variables present. There has to be an x and a y, and then they can ask domain and the range. Yeah, that's okay. That's a good question. Honest. Yeah. Okay. Let's do this big one. So, first thing you look at it, you go, it's this fraction divided by a fraction. We don't like that, so how do we fix it? Kiss and flip. So we're going to change it to be 2 times x plus 1 divided by 3x times x minus 2 divided by 4 times x plus 1. you're going to multiply these two things together. You're going to get 2x, x plus 1, x minus 2. On the bottom, you're going to get 12x, x plus 1. All I'm doing is multiplying coefficients by coefficients, variables by variables. This is when you can start canceling things out. 2 will cancel with this 12 to become 1 over 6. The x plus 1s will cancel out completely. The x minus 2 is going to be left by itself. So your answer would be x minus 2 divided by 6. Because 2 divided by 12 is 1 over 6. Now you need to state your non-permissible values. Flip back to the very beginning. 2 divided by 12 is 1 over 6. Right here. 2 divided by 12 simplifies to be 1 over 6. That's math practice. You need your non-permissible values. Your first division is here. What can't x be? So, x cannot equal 0. The second division is here, which means this can't be 0. So x can't be negative 1. We go below, and we see x can't equal 2. What else can't x equal? 0. We've already covered that base. Right? But just so you know, this one has 2. X can't equal 0 and x can't equal 2.
So what if there was like a different coefficient?
If it had been like, if this one didn't exist, for instance,
Oh.
and this was x times x minus 2, you would have to include both 0 and 2. Gainer. Oh, good question. I was like, I had to look at the question to know what you're talking about. Right here? Okay. Okay. It can be negative 1, just in case anyone else is wondering. Because negative 1 plus 1 is 0. 0 times that 4 will give us 0 again. Alright. Is this good? Do both questions. I'll put the answers on the board without the restrictions. So you need to write in the non-permissible values next to the answer. So go ahead and do them on your own. See what you get.
I don't like these later.
I doubt it.
The later ones.
Doubt it. And my answers could be wrong, so
No,
check with me and make sure it's right.
we have to factor.
So I got. We're doing the questions below, the practice questions. I'm writing the answers above so you guys can all see them. I don't know if those are the right answers. So if you got something different, please shout out. So ask me what's going on. And then oh, you did wrong. I see. Just kidding.
I do it right?
Yeah, you did. You did. There are different ways to fix that, right? Give me 1 second. If we're recording this right now, if you ever watch it, kind of sucks. Let's see what. So we're gonna come over here with this first one. You kissed it. You flipped it. Your ends canceled out. Then you should have gotten negative 3 over 7. If you got some huge number, like negative 84 over 196 or something, there's a really big number, yeah, go math frac in your calculator. So put it in, go that number, divided by that number, hit enter, and then go math fraction. And then it'll tell you what this is. They'll give you those numbers. What are your non-permissible values? So, let's look back. Okay. Flashback here, you look down here at the bottom. There is no non-permissible value there. You look over here. There is no non-permissible value in that. But it's a division, so you also have to check up here where now you've got something that equals 0. N cannot equal 0. That's your only restriction. Nope. Has to be N. Because we don't have X in this question. I don't know what X is. I'm probably looking for my Y. Okay, so dry. Here's the shortcut. My suggestion is use the shortcut as a way to check your answers. So do the question the long way, then do it the shortcut way and see if your answers match. It's a good way to check your answers quickly. Another good way to check your answers quickly is to just put variables in. But that's okay, right off the bat later. Right off the bat, you still got to kiss and flip. It's still going to be your first step. So we're going to switch this to 5x minus 3 over 2x times 3x x plus 5 divided by 10 x minus 3. Okay, that's still nice fine and dandy. That's always going to be your first step. Now, the second step I've always told you is to multiply things and then cancel out. The truth is you don't need to multiply them. You can get away with canceling out right away. As long as it's somewhere on the top and it's canceling out somewhere on the bottom, it works. So this x minus 3 will cancel with this x minus 3 right off the bat. This x up here is opposite of this x down there. They'll cancel right off the bat. This 5 and this 10 can cancel right off the bat. That 10 will just become a 2. And now all you have left is 3x plus 5 on the top, 2 times 2 on the bottom.
That makes life easy.
It makes it easy, but trust me, we're getting bigger. We're going to get larger and more difficult, and it's very easy to make a quick mistake doing it this way. That's why I want to show you the long way first, so you don't lose anything. My suggestion is still do it the long way. Use this to check your answers.
Would X still have to equal, or can equal square root of?
Right. You still got to go back to your original question. Check here for non-permissible values. Okay? X can't equal 0. Look up here. X also can't equal 3. Look down here. X also can't equal negative 5. You've got to check 3 spots because there was 3 divisions. Doctor.
So basically, sure, if you flip the opposite side, and then the top one can right in the seating contact.
Right. You can cancel out anywhere, all over the map, before you even do any multiplication. That's the shortcut.
Let's just say that I went on to the next page and I want to state a restriction, but what if you have to simplify it and then so if you state restriction, do you want to like do the original equation thing?
I guess you wait for the next page. Chauncey.
If the drawing equals 3 into the brackets, you get 3x equals 15.
Not wrong. If
Guys,
brutal. Attention span of a worm. I doubt it.
There's many parts though.
Yeah.
They have 7 parts.
Words?
Yeah, that's why we got all this.
7 hearts, 7 brains?
They don't have 7 brains. They only have. They actually worms are one of the creatures the closest central nervous system to humans.
humans.
Pretty cool.
It's fun.
Way to finish that sentence, Zucker. Okay. If you multiplied that 3 in, which was the question, Mem Dog, The question was, can I multiply that 3 in and is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. So if you put 3x plus 15 divided by 4, you're not necessarily wrong. But that's not going to be how the answer appears most likely. Remember yesterday we spent the entire day changing fractions? That's all you've done. Just change the fraction. It's not wrong, it's just you're probably not going to see. Okay.
So it's wrong.
This is what I mean when things are about to get more difficult. So, I read a funny quote. So when like you get frustrated, you like my reaction is to hit things. And I read a funny quote. So, if you look at these questions and you backtrack them to the other ones, which were getting pretty easy for us, the thing that makes this so much harder is it's not in factored form. So, now you've just got to make it factored form, then it's easy again. This unit is all about taking things that are difficult and breaking it into things that aren't difficult. So we learned that non-factored form is difficult. Factored form is nice and easy. So factor everything. Factor the top here. And you're going to get x plus 1 and x plus 4. Factor the bottom. Before you, sorry, things that multiply to be 4 and add to be 5 would be 4 and 1. On the bottom, the golden rule of factoring. The first thing you check for. Greatest common factor. So the very first thing you want to do is you want to factor, I'm going to do it with a nice little blue. You want to factor a 2 out and put the rest in brackets. That 2 will go away and the 8's both become 4's. Kind of like that. So take out your greatest common factor first. It'll come in handy later on because it'll be less likely to make a mistake. If you didn't do that, you're going to be okay as long as you're really good at math. If you just remember why you run into the problem you run into, you'll be okay. Now, I have a 2 out front still. Things that multiply to be positive 4 and add to be negative 4 will be x minus 2 and x minus 2. It's kind of a ridiculous way to write x minus 2 squared, but it's going to also help us out later on. So I'm going to write it like that. If you don't, you're fine. The other side, on the top, you can't diamond method that. But what can you do? Greatest common factor. So you take a 4 out, and you'll be left with x minus 2. On the bottom, you can't greatest common factor that. Nothing comes out of the bottom.
But it's a difference in squares. It's a difference in squares.
It is a difference of squares. That's the plus side. So remember, here's your steps of factoring. Can I greatest common factor? No. Can I diamond method? No. Can I create a difference of squares? Yes. And that's a good question, because that's what everybody wants to do. Everybody always just wants to turn that into x minus 1 squared. That's like the instinct. If this was x minus 1 squared, that's the same thing as x minus 1 times x minus 1, correct? If we FOIL that out, you get x squared minus 2x plus 1. So that's why it doesn't quite work. That's why they have to be alternating signs. Because then it'll cancel out the middle term, and it'll leave that negative. So you have to do different signs. So, go back to our question. And we have x plus 1, x minus 1. If we use our shortcut, this cancels with this.
No.
Good point, I scratched the wrong one. That one.
Nice try.
I used to the minus.
I saw you moving towards there, and I was like, don't do it, Kennedy. Not this.
Regrets. This x minus 2. This x minus 2 cancels with this x minus 2. This 4 divides with this 2. That's why factoring it out was so nice. If you didn't do a greatest common factor, you wouldn't have got that. Unless you realize that you made a mistake later on. Making that 4 now a 2. So on the top, you're left with 2x plus 4 divided by x minus 2 times x minus 1. Yes. Yeah, so if you want to multiply them together and then cancel, that's the way I recommend you do it. I'm doing it this way because I'm trying to speed up a little bit. Time.
What was the you showed us yesterday where it was like, it's right, you flip it back.
You would take a negative 1 out front and then flip it. Okay, see? Good? That's not our answer. Why is that not our answer? Restrictions. If you want to do your restrictions, I used to always say, go back to the first step. We go to that step, your restrictions are going to be hard to find. Go to your factored form. Before you've manipulated anything, right here, all we've done is reworded things. We haven't actually kiss and flip. We haven't done anything crazy. We haven't canceled anything out. That's the other big thing. So at this point is when you get your restrictions. So we look down here. What can't x be on that bottom? So x cannot equal 2. We look over here at this bottom. What can't x be? It can't be 1, and it can't be negative 1. You only had 2 divisions. We only had 2 areas to search. Living the dream? Gainer. Absolutely. So this one right here, the next one, that's what we're going to try. So, we look at this next one. It's difficult. Let's make it not difficult. First thing we're going to do, we're going to factor it, because we can work with things in factor form. This right now sucks. Let's fix it. So, 4x minus 10. I'm going to start working over here. I can factor a 2 out of it. Gives me 2x minus 5. Beneath that, x plus 3 can't be factored. But what I am going to do with that is I'm going to put it in brackets, because I want to remind myself that those two are stuck together. So later on, when I do multiplication division, I want to remember that x plus 3 started together. They want to be a package. It's still division. We're not kissing and flipping yet. We're just factoring. What's the first step to factoring? Greatest common factor. These are all divisible by 3. I know that because I did this earlier. I also know that because 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is a whole number. 6 plus 0 is 6. 6 divided by 3 is a whole number. 7 plus 5 is 12. 12 divided by 3 is a whole number. That's a trick that with divisibles by 3. Literally, you learned that in grade 3. But you totally forgot it. Yeah. So if you add numbers, so if I give you the number, if you put that in your calculator, it's divisible by 3. And the reason I know that is because if you add all these digits, 1 plus 2 is 3, plus another 3 is 6, plus another 6 is 12, plus another 9 is 21, plus another 2 is 23, plus 4 is 27. 27 is divisible by 3, so then that number must be divisible by 3. Crazy, right? Okay, wait. Ellen. There's a trick for, I don't know the 4s and 8s trick. There's a trick for 9s and 6s as well, I don't know.
Oh, divisible by 2 and 3, then it's divisible. And then 7 is just either an either.
There you go. Okay. Worms.
Hey, you don't know that. Worms can have great.
Okay. 75 is not divisible.
I got it.
All three have to be divisible, right? Okay. So, Ty, I've taken 3 out of all these. Yep. So what I do is I take a 3 out, put them in brackets, and I change them to what they should be. And then I'm going to factor that. So I know I have a 3 on the outside. And those are going to factor. So things that multiply to be 100 and add to be negative 20. It's going to be negative 10 and negative 10. So this will factor to be, remember my A value is 4, so I have to divide one of these by 4. Neither one can be divided by 4, so I divide both of them by 2. Okay, I'm not taking my time on factoring because I really hope you guys just remember how to factor. So that means I'm going to have 2x minus 5 and 2x minus 5 as my factors. Divided by, I have a greatest common factor again on the bottom. Take a 2 out. My greatest common factors are all in blue, if you're following along. Took out a 2. That gave me x squared minus 9. That gives me a difference of squares. So I have a 2, and then it's going to be x minus 3 to x plus 3. We're not at that stage yet. And there's a reason I didn't kiss and flip it. I factored first, then I'm going to kiss and flip. The reason I did it as 2 separate steps, this is the step that tells you your restrictions. This step gives you your non-permissible values. If you kiss and flip, you're going to miss some. And that's why I'm breaking it down into different steps. When I have a big question like this, I factor first, and then on the side, on a nice little safe spot where I know that nothing bad is going to happen, I write my non-permissible values. I start over here, and I see that x cannot equal negative 3 from this first one. Then I'm going to move up here, and I'm going to check. And you're going to see that x can't equal 5 over 2. Remember, a quick way to do that is it's this number divided by this number, change the symbol, and up.
You still have to do like the 0 for the coefficients though?
Right, and so if this was 3x, you would have to, but there's no x. Now I check the bottom. X also can't equal 3. And I leave that up top on my paper somewhere safe so I don't lose it. And I don't have to try to come back and find this step. Because with some of us, our work gets pretty messy. And we lose our steps pretty quick. So that's why we do it this way. Now you kiss and flip it. We're going to flip that fraction, and we're going to change that to a multiplication. So I've got 2x minus 5 divided by x plus 3 multiplied by, that's going to flip, so I have 2x minus 3, x plus 3, all divided by 3, 2x minus 5, 2x minus 5. And you see how doing it the quick way can be difficult. It's got a lot of things. Okay, have a good weekend. If you find yourself